All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for attending here at the first inaugural UCR Patent Award Ceremony and celebration of the one-year anniversary of the Entrepreneurial Proof of Concept and Innovation Center, or EPIC, as we like to call it. My name is Brian Suh. I am the Director of the Technology Commercialization within the Office of Technology Partnerships in Research and Economic Development. We're going to get started here. So it is my honor to introduce you to Michael Pisani, who is the Vice Chancellor for Research and Economic Development, to kick things off at this inaugural event this afternoon. Mike, thank you very much.
Thanks, Brian. There's a number of people I actually want to thank. First of all, the County of Riverside has been a great supporter of the university, Rob Field in particular. And I actually want to thank someone who always sits in the second and third row, but has been instrumental. Rosabelle Ochoa came here more than a year and a bit ago and has really put a lot more energy into our entrepreneurship programs. So here we're here to celebrate two things. One is a patent award ceremony, so we're here to recognize the faculty who have made discoveries that are novel, that are useful, and that are going to provide some benefit to the world and the industry. And second, we're here to honor the one-year anniversary of EPIC, our Entrepreneurial Proof of Concept Center. Now, what is a patent anyway? From a patent, what you can really do is you can prevent anyone from practicing your invention. Isn't that a great thing? So why does the university do that? Why do we want this property right? It's not to prevent people from doing it, but so that we can choose our partners, so that we can develop partners with people who are willing to invest in the company, who have the mechanism to take our products into market. Because while we do the early stage invention, it's really important that we have an ecosystem in which takes our inventions and makes products, sells them with it. And so that's why we're also here to celebrate the new center that's been around for about a year, funded by the Economic Development Agency and funded by the National Science Foundation as an I-Core center, recognizing that we are a center of excellence in this area. And then I also, it's now my job to introduce the next speaker who will introduce our keynote speaker. The next speaker, Catherine Urich, is an inventor herself. 10 years ago, she might have heard a similar speech at another university that I gave, where she actually helped to hire me at that university. And then I guess I helped return the favor by bringing her here. Catherine is a polymer chemist and is an inventor and has many patents and is involved in the startup process. And I think she's bringing a lot of energy and ideas into the academic part of the campus about how we could be more entrepreneurial, and that's important. So Catherine, come on up and let's introduce our speaker.
Thank you. It is really a great honor and a pleasure to introduce Dr. Tina Nova. Tina is currently the president and CEO of Molecular Stethoscope. It's a San Diego-based molecular diagnostic company. The company focuses on circulating cell-free RNA from blood as a biomarker for the assessment of specific organ health and disease. So this is, I say generally, Tina is what I would refer to as a serial entrepreneur. So she was also senior vice president at Illumina, who ran the oncology business unit. She was a CEO of Genoptics Medical Laboratory. Let's see, was also involved in other startups, Nanogen, Ligand Pharmaceutics, and Hypertech, and many, and now sits on the board of many different entities. Well, it's wonderful. I could spend a lot of time talking about the scientific thing, but scientific accomplishments and achievements. But I do want to spend just a few minutes just highlighting who Tina is. Amazing scientist, but also just an amazing person. She, like many of the students, 60% of the students at UCR, is a first-generation college student. She works really hard to make sure that as many people are involved in science and technology as many. So she spends a lot of time advocating for STEM, spends a lot of time advocating for women, and had recently received from the Athena Foundation, which focuses on promoting women in STEM, the Chairman's Award for Lifetime Achievement. That's a pretty amazing accomplishment, as well as featured as one of the top 10 women in biotech. So, in all of these kind of entities are recognizing her for her entrepreneurial activities. But again, I welcome Tina here really as an entrepreneur, as an amazing scientist, and as a amazing promoter of women in science. So Tina, please.
You always sound so much better when someone else introduces you. I also sound like a woman who can't hold a job. She was here, she was there. All it really means is you're old. Thank you, Catherine and Brian and Michael for inviting me to come here today. It was wonderful. I came in this morning, got out of my car and said, oh, I forgot that heat. How nice to be back into Riverside. And then I got to go up and see the lab bench, the spot where I worked for many, many, many hours. And it was incredible to walk back in the lab and to be there. And it was a very nostalgic day for me. And to meet so many incredible people and so many young women and men scientists, and to see the changes that have happened at UCR. It's just really amazing. I've made a lot of good and bad decisions in my life, there's no question about that, but choosing to come to UCR, there's no question, was certainly one of the best decisions I ever made, and I truly mean that. And that's really where I learned to be a scientist. I learned what an experiment was. I learned how to design experiments, to develop critical scientific thinking, and really to understand the ethics of science. And I have UC Riverside to thank for that, and Dr. Jolinda Traw, who was my mentor for so many years. So I feel very fortunate in my career. I don't feel like I've necessarily been successful. What I feel like is I've been able to do what I love for a long time. And there's nothing better when it comes to your career than doing something that you really, really love. And that's the way I feel about my job and position and career. And I think it's great that you guys are really focusing on inventorship. And actually, that's something that isn't done that much. I've never seen an award ceremony for inventors before. And so I really, I'm really think that you guys should be proud of the fact that UCR is so progressive that you really think about doing something like this, because inventors really deserve to be recognized. And if it wasn't for inventions, we wouldn't have the biotech industry that we have. We wouldn't have the pharmaceutical company we have. We wouldn't have the device company that we have, and we certainly wouldn't have the diagnostics company that we have. I'm gonna grab my water that's in my that dry air. Sorry. So inventorship is really, it's incredible. And so many companies have been started on one single patent that came out of one university, that came out of one lab. And you can see that that could become the seed for $1 billion pharmaceutical drug. It can become the seed for anything that's in healthcare today. And the changes that have happened because of patents and biotechnology, the number of debilitating diseases that have been tackled in the last few years is all due to inventorship and to patents. And there's no reason why the University of California at Riverside cannot contribute to that. What I really like about patents is that they're not political. And what I mean by that is, I remember the first time I published a paper after I got my PhD, and I was in a department at NYU Medical School, and I had written my paper, and my major professor and I were the authors on the paper. And when I sent it in to be looked at by the powers that be in the department, it came back with 3 names on it, in addition to the 2 that were on there with people I never met. And so they were people that were part of the system, and we had to put their name on our paper, and I'm like, but they don't even know me. They didn't do anything. This is just our work. So, yeah, Tina, but that's just the way it is. You have to do that. But that's not true about patents. Patents have a legal definition, and that legal and strict definition is really adhered to. If you have not contributed to that as an inventor, you are not an inventor on that patent. And so it's one of those things that I think is very, very pure in the way it still is today. So I'll tell you a little bit about my journey and starting companies and working on patents and what have you. And I like to start a little bit with my background because it's very unusual. And as Catherine said, I'm a first-generation American to go to school. My family came from Greece. My grandparents lived next door, and everyone worked very, very hard. My family were all farmers, every one of them. And my family today is still all farmers, and they're married to farmers. And so when I kind of got into this field, I was like, she's doing really well, but we don't know what Tina does. She does some science stuff. And so it just wasn't the background that my family was used to. And it's been an incredible ride in education. My grandparents actually said to me, well, why are you going to college? You know, we can bring a boy from Greece and you can marry him and just stay here with us. I couldn't think of anything worse. And so at that time, I said, no, I really want to go to school and go away to college. And they kind of shook their heads. My parents were all for it, but my grandparents, they had a little bit of a rough time with sending girls away, And so I said, no, I really want to go. I said, what if my husband dies and I have to get a job? If I'm educated, I can get a better job and support my family. They said, that is really, really thoughtful of you. Yeah, I get that. So I went to college on the premise that I would have a dead husband someday. And so, but whatever works to get you out of town, you go with it. And so here I was at a high school that didn't have calculus, that didn't have physics, that didn't have chemistry. We had auto shop, and we had mechanical drawing, and we certainly had homemaking for the girls. And so when I got to Irvine, needless to say, I was a little behind. And I get there, it's like, you guys had calculus in high school? Really? Wow, I couldn't believe it. And so I had to catch up from the very beginning, and it was difficult. It was not easy, and there were a few times when I just wanted to pull a U-turn and go back and find that boy from Greece and stay there. But, I really stuck through it, and it was just really sheer drive and wanting to do something different and really wanting to make a difference that I stayed with it. And there were many times when I thought about not doing it, actually. And I really wanted to go into science, and everyone said, well, if you're into science, you're pre-med. So, I really? Yeah, you're pre-med. Okay. And so I told everyone I was pre-med and I was going to be a doctor, and they said that was great. Everyone understood that. But one day, I was a dishwasher in one of the labs at Irvine, and I looked over, and there was a postdoc sitting there, and he was pipetting. And I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm pipetting. I said, that looks so fun. He said, really? You think this is fun? I said, yeah. He said, come here. So he comes over, he teaches me how to pipette. The minute I had that pipette man in my hands, that was the end of me. That was the end of med school, and that was the beginning of my scientific career. I still like to pipette. So that was the real turning point for me, and really thought about going into science and not going to medical school. And so at the end of getting my bachelor's degree at Irvine, I thought, well, now what? I'm not going to medical school, and so I can't get a PhD. I'm not smart enough. And so I'm going to just look for a tech job. And so, of course, there's a boyfriend involved, and I came out to Riverside, and I applied for a job, and Jolinda Traw interviewed me and hired me, and I was her lab technician. And I can't tell you what an incredible experience that was, and I did a heck of a lot of pipetting. And I loved it. At the end of a year, she said, you're going to grad school. And I said, okay, I think I'm ready now. And so it was really her encouragement that really drove me, and I don't know if I would have done that if it wasn't for her at that time. So I'm forever indebted to her. And I loved it. I loved it. I was in the lab all the time, anytime I could be. And I still feel that way. And my love for science has certainly not changed. And then once I left Riverside, I went to New York and New York University. I did my postdoc. And then I decided to go into industry. That was a little disappointing for Jolly at the time. She thought I should go into academics, and I said, no, industry's for me. I joined a company in San Diego called Hypertech, and it was incredible. And so I go to Hypertech, and I'm hired as a junior scientist. I'm making $28,000. At that point, that sounded like a lot of money after postdoc money. And living in New York on postdoc money was even better. And so I met with my supervisor, and they gave me my bench, and they taped it off, and they gave me 3 feet, and we had tape every 3 feet. You're a scientist, you're a junior scientist, you get 3 feet, that's it, see you later. And here's your project. He said, what's my project? We said, well, we're having problems with PSA, prostate-specific antigen. We're trying to purify it out of serum, we can't get it purified, we can't get it stable, we can't make the calibrators, we can't make the product for the PSA test, blood test. And so here you go, work on it. And I thought, okay, I'll work on that. So I told my colleagues what I was working on. They go, what project did you get? I said, it's PSA. They said, oh boy, you got that? That's too bad. A lot of us have tried it. We haven't been able to get it to work. I said, really? Why not? Oh, it's really hard. Well, then I realized that everyone had been given the project was either an immunologist or a biologist, but not a biochemist. So knowing how to purify proteins, and I can tell you that Jolinda Trott never let us buy a kit. We did everything from scratch. And so I knew how to purify and stabilize proteins. So I figured it out. A month later, I went to this meeting and I presented it and said, oh, I figured out how to purify PSA. We can make this calibrators now. We can put this product on the market. And they said, you what? I said, no, I got it figured out. And they were like, I can't believe it. And I was like, it wasn't that hard. And they said, you need to go to the patent office. I said, what is that? So we have a lawyer in the building next door, and he's going to write up a patent on your invention. I said, my invention? All I did was purify the protein the way I knew. Oh no, this is an invention. You figured something out that hadn't been done, and for this product. And so there I went, my first job, my first month, to the patent office, and sat and told the lawyer what I had done. He thought I was so clever. And I have my first patent. And to this day, I have that patent hanging in my house. It's in the bathroom. Where else would you put a prostate patent? But it's there, and I'm very, very proud of it. And I got $100 for it, by the way, because, of course, the company owns everything. And at that point, I thought an extra $100 was pretty darn good. So that was my experience in being at a company and being associated with patents and entrepreneurship and how you could see something turn into something. And I then worked on the PSA product, and I can't tell you how incredible it was to see that all of a sudden in a kit, on a pallet, going in a truck and being shipped off as a product. And that is when you really have that reward. And then when you meet people who say, oh, PSA, yeah, I had a PSA test, and that test saved my life. You're like, really? Yeah. That test is still on the market today, unfortunately, because nothing else has come along that's better, but it's still there today. And do you know what it's like when people tell you that your test actually made a difference in their life? So that small invention that I didn't think was much of an invention actually turned out to be something that was pretty incredible and something that I'm really proud of. I didn't do it by myself. There's a lot of us there. We built this product together, and we were a team, and that was what was so incredible about it. But it was the first time I really understood what kind of impact you can have from a lab to a product rolling out the door. After that, I went to a couple other startup companies. All of them were started on patents that were licensed out of universities. Some of those things worked, some of those things didn't. They don't all work. And sometimes it's not that the science doesn't work, it's that science may not work in that environment. It may not be able to be commercialized. It may not make a good product. It may not be what the market needs. And when we're sitting in a lab and we're working on something and we're thinking about an invention, we don't think about it that way. We don't think about, where could this go? And you really need to start to think about that as an inventor. You have to think about it as a product out in the world, because that's the way these companies are started. And you need to think about it all the way. So yes, I've been at companies that didn't work. Yes, I've been at companies that did work. Yes, we licensed technology out of UCSD, Stanford, Scripps Clinic. I've been involved with several. And I'm now at a company where I'm now working on liquid biopsy so that we can have a blood test for NASH, non-alcoholic steatohepatitis, which is fatty liver disease, which is one of the biggest, largest worldwide epidemics that we're about to have. There's no drugs on the market for it today, and we are inventing every day a test for that so that you don't have to get a liver biopsy. So the invention never stops. Starting a company is not easy. Key things are money, are people, and of course the science, and you need all of them. It's not something that's easy to do, and it's not for the meek. But as I said, it's incredibly rewarding. There are so many things you have to think about before you start a biotech company. You have to think about, as I said, what is the market for this? What's currently being done for liver tests? Is there room for my invention in that world? Well, in our case, a liver biopsy is invasive. Doctors don't like to do it. It's expensive. It's very painful. You can get infections. There is a need for a liquid biopsy test, right? And so you need to know that there is a need in the marketplace. You need to know that you can sell that to somebody. Can you sell it to physicians? Can you sell it to medical centers? Can you sell it to hospitals? And if you do, who's going to pay for it? And that's something that none of us learn in school. We don't think about who pays for it. Well, who does pay for it? Insurance companies pay for it. Medicare pays for it. Medi-Cal pays for it. There's all these different government and private entities that pay for our health care. And sometimes they pay for our inventions, and sometimes they don't. What if you invent something that's better than something else, but it's really expensive to do that test? You may not get that on the market, no matter how good it is, because that entity does not want to pay for something that's more expensive than it's out there today. So then you have to prove, yes, but it's better. It may be more expensive. This technology is more expensive. We have to sequence. It's more expensive. That's more expensive than running an immuno, test. And so you have to think of all these things. You have to think of the competition. There's people out there trying to do what you're trying to do every day. And you can never think whatever you have is best. Someone is going to try to invent something better than you. You have to convince venture capitalists who give you money to start these companies that you understand what you're doing, that you understand that you know how to run a company, that you know how to take that science and commercialize it and turn it into something. You have to show them a business plan. You have to show them a financial plan. And day one, they're asking you, when are you going to be profitable and how much money are you going to make? And you're sitting there going, I haven't even run one experiment. But you have to be able to answer those questions. Yes, will it change? Yes. Is your original business plan the one you end up with? No. But you have to start with all those components in place. So if you think about starting a company, all those pieces are really important. But what's at the core? The invention, the patent. It all comes back to that. I feel very fortunate to be part of biotech. I look what's happened in the last few years. We now have drugs on the market for HIV that we didn't have several years ago. And now someone who's 20 years old who is diagnosed with HIV can have a very normal, long life. Things like hepatitis C were deadly diseases, and now we have drugs on the market that really cure things that are out there. Childhood leukemia was not what it was and what it is today. Most children are cured because of drugs that have been developed, that started in biotech, that started as inventions, that started as patents in universities. So we have the opportunity at this level to really make a difference in the world and in healthcare. And if you think about it in that way, that's really, really powerful. And there aren't too many people that go home from their job every day and can say, I'm trying to do this because I want to make this a better world. I want to be able to cure a child that has something where there isn't something today. Do most companies fail when they're small? Yeah. Do most drugs make it to the market? No. Do most companies go through times when they can't make payroll and you don't get a paycheck? You bet. But you know what? When you know what's at the end of that, that's a driver and nothing gets in your way. And so again, I'm really proud to be here today. I'm proud to be part of this incredible program that you've started on inventorship. I hope I've inspired one person that has a patent or thinking about having a patent or thinking about starting a company to do something and do it big, because there's nothing like it. And I recognize and honor you for your excellence. And I thank you for helping the world be a better place. And thank you to UC Riverside and Catherine and the whole team here for inviting me to be part of it today. Thanks.
Wow. That's all I can say is what a journey. What a journey. Thank you for sharing your experiences and inspirational words with the audience today, Tina. Just as a token of our appreciation, we just wanted to get you a little something.